Hello and welcome to this second video in a series on the writing process. This video is focusing on the power of planning and particularly this idea of brainstorming and beginning to evaluate our ideas. When it comes to the writing process, planning is absolutely key. You want your planning stage to be the biggest stage or the largest or the longest stage of your writing process. Now I have some numbers here. I don't think they're exact. Good writers spend 75% of their time planning and 25% of their time writing. You'll see other numbers thrown about in different types of good writing guides, saying good writers spend 80% of their time planning and only 20% of their time writing. The numbers really aren't important. What is important, the key takeaway message is that the bulk of the time you want to spend planning your assignment. This will help you really focus the writing part of the process, but will also help you focus the research part of the process. There's no question that planning is the most important stage in the writing process. The first thing we do in the writing process is analyse our task. Once you've done that, once you've gotten a really good idea and understanding of what your assignment or your task or your question is asking of you, it's time to start generating ideas, as many ideas as we can. And we do that through the brainstorming process. So you know what your topic is, but it might be that you feel that you have so many ideas on it that you really don't know where to start. And you might think, well, brainstorming is the last thing I want to do. I don't want to generate any more ideas. Brainstorming can be really useful in helping you narrow down all of the ideas you have and to allow you to begin to focus them. But it could be that you know what your topic is and you feel you don't have many ideas at all yet, and that's perfectly fine too. Brainstorming is very useful for that as well. Brainstorming is going to allow you to generate a number of ideas. And we're not worried at this stage about whether the ideas are any good or not. It's just to get that thinking process started. So brainstorming is a great way to generate as many ideas as possible. It's also a really great way to begin to organise your ideas. And that's where the planning stage is so important. So how do we brainstorm? Now there is no best one single way to do it. We all think differently, we all learn differently. So we need to find a way to brainstorm that works for us, as is true of a number of different academic study skills. I'll talk through a couple of strategies that you might find useful. One is a process of asking questions. You can ask any questions you like, but one that's quite commonly put forward is the WWWW way. Some people say 4 W's, WWWW. I say why not 5? And this is asking questions like who? Who does this question relate to? Is there a particular cohort within our population, a particular age group? Is it Australians over the age of 65? Is it children in early childhood education before the age of 5, etc.? So who does the question relate to? Who will be your population of interest? And where? Is it in Australia? Is it in a different country, a particular geographical region, a particular context, university students, for example? And when? Are we looking at a particular time period? Do we need to focus on a particular time period? But we also want to ask what? What is involved here? What are the issues here? And why? Why are they important? Why are they relevant? What's their significance? A process of asking a lot of questions and trying to write down as many answers as you can be a really, really useful way of brainstorming. For me though, I always liked free writing. I like to liberate my thoughts. We don't have to worry about evaluating them, just write down as many as you can. This can look any way you want it to. You might find prose really useful, literally just writing, filling a whole page. It might just be taking a number of notes. You might do it by hand, you might do it on the computer, it really doesn't matter. It is just to get down as many possible ideas as you can in relation to your topic. A lot of students find mind mapping really useful. Some of you will be familiar with mind mapping. It's where you do a sort of visual representation of your ideas. Mind mapping can use a lot of colour and it can look, good Lord, something like this. We put a main idea in the middle and then we have all the ideas we can think of running off either side. What mind mapping is good for is showing the connections between ideas. And for some students, as I say, mind mapping is a really beneficial process because they respond really well to the visual representation of their ideas. For me, I find mind mapping just a little bit overwhelming. You can use a sheet of paper to do a mind map by hand. There are a number of good mind mapping sites that you can also use, and you might want to look at one of these. Whichever way you do your brainstorming though, it really doesn't matter. The idea is simply to just generate as many possible ideas as we can. What we do then is begin to evaluate these ideas. So your creative mind generates the ideas, but this is where your critical mind comes in and begins to start evaluating them. And again, there are a number of different ways that you can do this. But one that a lot of students find useful is an ABC analysis. And this is a simple way to assess the ideas that you've generated basically on the base of their importance, the ones you perceive to be most important or most relevant. So an ABC analysis is simply beginning to group your ideas A, B, C. So if we look at something like this, the A items, the most important or the most relevant. The B ones, relatively important. And then the C ones, you're beginning to think maybe less important. And those might be the ones that don't end up necessarily in your assignment. But you're beginning to notice that the ones over here, they're probably going to be the key ideas. And you might begin to start seeing some links and some connections between those ideas, and a way that you'll be able to bring them together in one whole cohesive assignment. Once you've sort of started generating a lot of ideas, that's when we really begin the research process. But before we get to that, I just want to point out that scoping searches can be really useful, either before or after the brainstorming process. Scoping searches are brief searches of literature that just give a bit of an overview of the topic. So we're not looking too deeply yet, and we might not necessarily even be within the Find It at Flinders library catalogue or any of the databases. We might be doing a Google search in the first instance. We know that we want to think about the types of resources that we introduce into our assignments. But at this stage of the process, we're just trying to get a sense of our topic, begin to get a bit of an overview of it. So that can be a really useful thing to do through a scoping search. If you feel you don't have a lot of ideas, you're struggling with the brainstorming process, do some simple searching. Begin to get a sense of the topic, the debates in the topic, the issues that people talk about in the topic. And once you have generated a lot of ideas through brainstorming, you might also want to do a scoping search, having a look at some of the ideas that you have generated to see whether they are key. It can be a useful thing to do when you're looking at doing something like an ABC analysis, beginning to work out which ideas might be most important, most relevant, which ones you might be able to discard. The next video in this series will begin to look at the research process and how to get a lot more targeted with your research. But hopefully you found this one useful, all about planning and brainstorming and getting all of those thoughts happening when you have an assignment that you need to do. I look forward to seeing you again.